You are not just starting your spiritual journey. Despite the title of this video, I just know what a lot of people refer to as the start of their spiritual journey. Usually it's the moment in life where they discover spirituality. They feel a calling towards it. They feel like they connect with certain energies and interests and thoughts and perspectives. So they think that moment is starting off on their spiritual journey. When for me, I believe you start your spiritual journey from the day you are born, from the moment you was conceived, honestly. It starts from the day you are born, the day you enter life, because every step, decision, mistake, success, achievement that you achieve or you go through in life all led up to this very moment, and each thing was an experience that you learned from. So that was the start of your spiritual journey. It's your life's journey. So don't feel like you're behind or you're missing something. You're starting off late in life. Whether you're watching this video, if you're 18, 48, 68, whatever, you've been on this spiritual journey for as long as you were living. You're just now getting to this moment. So don't feel like you missed out on something or you have a lot of catching up to do. You learned a bunch of lessons throughout your life, and you were meant to find out about spirituality at this moment on your spiritual journey. So you're doing just what you were supposed to do. You're doing just fine. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Hey y'all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. And I know usually on this channel y'all know me for my stories, but also with these spiritual stories, I want to talk about your story as well and help you with your story, your spiritual journey, your life's journey. And I have some thoughts sometimes, and this video is inspired by all the people who have told me, hey, can you cover some stories on TikTok? Can you cover stories on Witch Talk? Can you do like ghost stories on TikTok and break those stories down? I hear some interesting stuff over there. So I said, okay, let me go over to Witch Talk, because naturally my algorithm does not bring that up. When it comes to spiritual stuff, with me being a spiritual content creator, sometimes when I'm sitting down relaxing scrolling on TikTok, I don't want to hear nothing about no candle. I don't want to hear nothing about no ancestor. I don't want to hear nothing about nobody using this. I don't want to hear nothing spiritual. I just want to watch some nonsense to give my brain a break. And I see why, because going over there to Witch Talk, it's great people, amazing people, okay? But you can get overwhelmed with the amount of information that's being shared. So I could only imagine for someone who's just now starting their spiritual journey and you're a little bit vulnerable or too receptive of different information and advice from people. You could have one person in one video saying don't do this, then scroll down 3 videos and the next person is saying no, do this, do the very thing that this person just said don't do. And it could confuse you. You could feel like, okay, so what's right, what's wrong, who's doing it correctly? So don't put that stress on yourself like, oh my gosh, who do I listen to? Who's doing it the right way? I have to do it just like this person because this person said I've been doing it wrong. Okay, so here's the thing, and I feel like I say this a bunch of times in like 1,000 different ways, but I feel like this is the most important part when it comes to spirituality. Everyone's spiritual practice, spiritual beliefs, spiritual thoughts, spiritual theories, spiritual experiences are going to be different, because like I said before, your spiritual journey is your life's journey. So everything you've been through before leads up to how you practice, how you think, how you digest information, how you do your rituals, how you do your spells. It's all going to be different for every single person. This one person who grew up in South Carolina, who grandma did hoodoo and she learned from her, is going to look different from someone else who grew up in Atlanta and grandma did hoodoo as well, because their grandmas are different people. They have different teachings and they digested that information differently and they crafted it to their own specialties and what they needed to be done. So everything's going to be different. Just how everyone's life story and life experience is different, their spiritual beliefs are going to be different as well. Even if you have someone who's initiated into a certain house or practice something very, very specific, it's still going to be different because people are different. So don't think, oh, who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong. They're all doing it their way. Now I will say one thing that I do not like, but this is one thing that inspired my channel. It's when people feel like they have to correct other people consistently, and it's like, okay baby, you know that your way isn't the technical correct way for everyone. That works for you. Someone else may look at it and be like, you know what, I like that, I'm gonna try it and it works for them. But if I do my rituals a certain way, it's not necessarily going to work for you a certain way, because for me, I'll use myself as an example. I'm very extra when it comes to my spells and rituals. I like my crystals, I like my candles, I like my herbs, I like my oils, I like my statues, I like it to look very, you know, put together, just because I'm an arts and crafty person. Ever since I was little, I was cutting up paper, drawing stuff, making stuff, using cardboard to craft it. I'm a very arts and crafty type of person, so that is displayed in my spiritual practices. For me to really be into it, have good intentions, and to put a lot of effort into it, it has to look pretty. I simply like things to look pretty. And when I say pretty, it just has all the now the spell itself could look actually horrible and just messy. But for me, the more things I do by hand, the more intention I'm putting into it. Now the next person may be like, girl, I'm not doing all that. And that's okay. Don't feel like you're forced to do it, like, oh my gosh, BlaqueWitchYaya says she likes to draw on her candle, so I have to draw on mine. No, if you don't like drawing, if you're not into all of that, do it your way. If you're more into, you know what, I like writing a song. If you want to put each ritual into a song, instead of writing your petition because you may not be a writer, instead of writing your manifestations because you don't like writing, put it in a song, put it in a rap. Do it how you do it. Do what you do. But if I were to come on this camera and say, if your manifestations aren't at least 4 pages long, you're doing it wrong. And it's like, no, I like to talk, I like to write, so of course my manifestations or petitions will be longer than the next person who may not be a writer, who may be like, hey, I can sit here and imagine what I want. I don't need to say anything, I don't need to sing anything. I'm a thinker, so I can sit and visualize what I want, and that's my way of doing the ritual. Just because you do it a certain way doesn't mean the next person is doing it the wrong way. So let's just say, for example, if you burn a white candle for every ritual or manifestation that you're doing, right? And you hear someone on TikTok, Instagram, wherever say, if you're only burning white candles, you're doing it wrong. But you know, when you burn your white candle, everything happens for you. You feel at peace. You see your manifestations comes to life. You feel like you can achieve it. It becomes tangible. Don't listen to them. It works for you. So keep doing it. Now, granted, in spirituality, there are going to be some things that we do the same just because it's some commonalities in whatever practice that you've come up with that you adapted for yourself. For example, majority of us burn candles. Not everyone, but majority of us are going to burn candles. So for example, let's just say we take 100 spiritual girls, 100 spiritual boys, 100 spiritual men, 100 spiritual women, and we ask them, hey, do you burn candles? And 70 of those people say, yes, I burn candles. Then let's just say we ask them, okay, so how do you burn your candle? I promise you, out of those 70 people, at least 50 of them are going to burn their candle completely different than the next person, but it works for them. So one, not trying to copy and paste someone else's spirituality, because doing it their way may not work for you because you're your own person. Something else I want to add as well is getting to know your own spirituality, getting to know your own spirit. How does spirit communicate with you? How do you receive messages from your higher self, from your ancestors, from your spirit guides? Who are your spirit guides? Who are your ancestors? Who is your higher self? Who is the elevated, advanced, and evolved version of yourself? Study yourself. So instead of being like, oh my gosh, I got to sit down and watch 100 spiritual videos, I got to take notes from this person, I got to take notes from that person. And that goes into another point I need to mention. Use that energy to get to know yourself. Meditate. See where your mind goes when you are completely at peace or in silence, or however you prefer to meditate. For myself, I receive a lot of messages through dreams. Like, there are some dreams that are just fluff, BS dreams, but there are some dreams I wake up from like, okay, I was supposed to take something from that because it's very vivid. I told my therapist one time, like, it's like certain dreams are in 4K. And then I wake up and I remember everything in that dream, and it seems so clear, the people's faces. It's like I know something was supposed to come from that dream, so I write it down. For some other people, they receive messages through Mother Nature when they're out at the park meditating. They see certain birds and animals. They may hear voices coming from them. However you receive your messages, start studying yourself. Don't feel like you have to study other content creators who are spiritual and adapt it to yourself. Of course, take their experiences, take their advice, listen to it, see how it applies to you, chew the meat, spit out the bone, but don't be like, oh my gosh, this person said I need 6 candles, I need to put it in this shape, I have to write it like this, it has to be 10 to this long. This is not school. There is no word count requirement for your petitions or your manifestation. This is not art class where you have to paint a certain picture a certain way and submit it in that way. It's not school. If spirituality was that strict that you have to do it like this, you have to do it like that, you can't do this, you can't do that, it would be a religion. Am I right? Kind of like, you have to read this book, whatever's in this book that says it's a sin, it's a sin. It's not like that. That's the very reason why a lot of people come from religion, because how strict it is, and when you're constantly trying to make yourself fit into this certain rule book and do the certain things that everybody else do, you'll find yourself feeling trapped. That's why a lot of people go to spirituality, because it's more freeing and you get to know yourself. The other point I wanted to make, and this is coming from a spiritual content creator, Do not consume too much spiritual content. I don't consume that much spiritual content. I got my go-to people that I like, and I keep it there, because if you're constantly mixing and matching, if there's too many chefs in the kitchen, the dinner will be horrible. That's why for myself with my content, I present it in a way, even if you're not learning anything spiritual from this video. This story was interesting. You had some entertainment. It helped you on your way home. It helped you while you cook dinner. It helped you on your walk. There was a man, I'm going to quote, I won't say his name because he's in trouble now and I believe he's canceled, but he's basically said something in the line of, if you can get people's attention, if you can entertain them, now you can inform them, now you can teach them. So that's why I present my content like, hey, let's share a story of someone's experience that we all can learn from. In all of my stories, if you read the comment section, there is going to be different opinions, different takes. Everyone's life experience is going to dictate how they view certain things and how they digest information. You can watch Yaya and not take a word of what I say. You can watch this video and be like, BS, I'm gonna do what I want. That's what you're supposed to do. For example, I love a good example. So let's just say you want to cook a nice pot of collard greens, right? You never cooked collard greens before, so you go on YouTube and you say, how to cook collard greens. You watch one person, they cook their greens a certain way, they chop it up a certain way. You're like, okay, bet. You watch another person, they cook theirs a certain way, they chop theirs up, they season theirs a certain way. You're like, all right, bet. You watch another person, they cook theirs a certain way, they chop theirs up a certain way, they season theirs a certain way, they have it cooked for a certain amount of time. All three of those people are cooking collard greens. At the end of the video, they're going to have a nice bowl of collard greens. For the first person, you may be like, I like the pot that she used. I like how she has a lot of space to stir up the pot. I'm going to get that pot. For the next person, I liked how she cut her collard greens up very thin. It'll make it more tender and it'll make it more easier to cook. For the next person, you may be like, you know what? I like that they put onions in theirs and they use seasoned salt. I really feel like that'll bring out the flavor, and they had neck bones in theirs. Like whatever. For each video, they all cook collard greens, but you took one little piece from each thing, and now you're going to make it into your own. So when it's time to cook your greens, you're like, you know what? I feel like I'm going to add some kale in here. Or you know, my mama used this seasoning before. I'm going to use this. Or you know what? I feel like this will taste good in it. You know what? It needs a little bit of this. You're going to make it your own, yet you took I used your pot, I used your way of cutting, and I used your neck bones and seasoning and cook time. And you crafted it into your own, and you added your own razzle dazzle to it, and you made the greens where you know you would like it. You didn't just watch the first video and be like, okay, so she got this pot, she says she used this, okay, so she says she chop it up. If you do that and then you taste the greens, it could be the most nastiest greens you ever had in your entire life, but you felt like, oh my god, this person said this is how you do it, so it must be that way. To that person, that's the best greens that she ever had in her life. It could be passed down generation to generation, but to you, they were disgusting, they were tough, and they were bitter. But when you take a little bit from each one and then add your own razzle dazzle, you made your own pot of greens fitted to your taste buds. That's how spirituality should be in general. When you watch spiritual content creators, it may be like, hey, I don't know what else she said, but I like that she wiped her candle down with Florida water. You know what? I like the way she set this up. I like that she has an ankh in the background. You know what? He's right about this, so I'm going to write my petition this way. And you know what? Since I'm sitting here, I feel like I should use this symbol. I feel like I should say this. I feel like I should add this oil. It's going to naturally come to you once you receive inspiration from other people's experiences and apply it to yours and add your touch to it. If I were to send all of y'all a candle, a herb, some oils, a sheet of paper, and a pen, and I said, hey, we're going to do a ritual for money, every single one of y'all are going to do it differently. Some people are going to be like, you know what, I don't even use oil. Some people are like, no, I don't even need this candle. I don't even know what these herbs are. I'm going to use my own herbs. Everyone's going to do it differently, but no one's doing it wrong because they're doing it their own way. The only wrong way is trying to mimic how someone else does their spiritual workings and thinking it's going to work for you. Because the main ingredient to any ritual, any spell work, any manifestation, whatever you're working on, is your intention and your words. So if you're just copy and pasting someone else's stuff, you're not going to feel as passionate about it because it's not you. It's going to be like, well, she said it was going to work. You're depending on her for your stuff to work. No, you need to have it for yourself. You know what? I meant this when I said it. I feel good about it. I can see it. It's going to work for me. So if you want to do a protection ritual, you go online, how to do a protection ritual. You're going to say, this article says this video says this TikTok video said this Instagram video said this. You're going to receive all this information. And how are you going to dissect which one is wrong, which one is right? You're not going to know until you craft some stuff yourself. Like, okay, you have the information that's out there. Let's take all of this. Let's mix it up. Let me add my own stuff to it and make it work for me. And it's going to work because it has the touch of Jessica. It has a touch of Corey. It has a touch of Terrence. It has a touch of Brittany. It has a touch of Charles. It has a touch of Steve. Whoever you are, it has your magical touch to it. And going back to the collard green example, if you have a grandma or auntie who always cook a nice pot of greens and you be like, oh, she put her foot in it. You need to put your foot in your ritual or your spell work. Basically means, oh, she really meant this. She really wanted to cook this. This really turned out good. She was really paying attention to the cook time, the seasoning, how the meat was tender. However they cooked it, they added their own razzle dazzle to it. And if you take your grandmother's, your aunt's collard green recipe and you be like, okay, my auntie said she do this, my grandma said she do this. If you ever tried to recreate someone else's recipe, it's not going to taste the same. It could taste so similar, but it's gonna be like, this is not how my grandma made it. Or even if you ask them the recipe, like, hey, how much of this seasoning do you put in it? Majority of the time it's gonna be like, I don't know. Like, they just feel it. Like, they just know when to stop. That's how you're going to be with your workings. You can ask someone, hey, why did you use that oil? Or why did you put that candle there? They're like, I don't know. I just felt like I should. They felt called to do it. So they're doing their own thing. So if they felt called to do it, they're not sure why they do it. Then they tell you, you need to do it this way. When there's some stuff they don't even know why they do it, it's not for you to do it because you don't know the reasoning or the intention that they had behind what they did. For example, while scrolling on Witch Talk, I saw someone say, oh, a real witch don't need all them candles and crystals and oils. I said, oh, I didn't feel like I wasn't a real witch. I didn't feel like I was doing something wrong because I know when I sit down with my candles, my paper, my crystals, all of my, y'all see my background, all of my extraness, my things work because I feel like my extraness adds to my intention, which adds to the overall power of the ritual that I'm doing. But if I was someone like, oh my gosh, so I don't need all those candles, I don't need all those crystals, my stuff isn't going to turn out right. Okay, so let me just use a pen and a sheet of paper. You're altering what you do to fit someone else's standards that don't even know you, never met you before, don't know your life experiences, don't know what you like, but you feel like since that person with the microphone said it, I got to do it. No, do what fits you. Take in the information and don't rush yourself. Do not rush yourself. If you're not ready to do a ritual, burn a candle, you don't feel like you know what you're doing, don't rush yourself. Take in information and let your spirit guide you. Sitting in silence, working in silence, meditating, having dreams. I know it sounds all like, oh, just namaste, just calm down. No, like be prepared for when you do it. Or if you want to do it, get yourself in the mindset to do it. You could just get a plain white candle and like, you know what, let's just see, where does my mind go? Get creative, tap into it. I feel like people forget the craft part of witchcraft. It's a craft. You're crafting, you're creating, you're altering things, you're adjusting it to your own feel, your own practice. It's literally a craft, like arts and craft. If you tell 6 people who know how to crochet, hey, make me a pair of high-waist purple pants, each pair of pants are going to look different, but guess what? They're all high-waist purple crocheted pants. They're just all different. If I tell 10 people, hey, go to the store and bring me a white shirt, I bet you I'm going to get 10 different versions of a white shirt because this person thought this one was cute. This person thought it would look cute on me. This one liked the V-neck. This person just walked in and grabbed the first white shirt they saw. This person liked this shirt because they have one like it. It's all different. And I feel like that's the beauty when it comes to spirituality and content creators, because you get to see where does everyone's mind goes. What does this person like to do? What practices this person learned? What has this person learned who lives in the South, who lives with the hoodoo grandmother? What has this person learned that lives with the hoodoo father? Like, you get to see how everyone else do things differently. And to me, that's the beautiful part, because for me, that's where the intriguing conversations come from. Like when I talk to someone who's spiritual and they tell me like, you know, when I manifest, I do this, some stuff you never even thought of, but it's like, wow, that's so nice you do it that way. And knowing the reasoning behind they do certain things, or the feelings that they get, or how they receive messages, it's a good conversation. If everyone was the same, it'll be boring. And that's why, just a random note as well, when people try to force a certain religion down your throat, I'm like, just because that religion works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for the next person. It's nothing wrong with you that this religion fits you. It's nothing wrong with you, but it's nothing wrong with the other person because that religion doesn't work for them. So especially for some reason, Christianity and spiritual people go hand in hand when it comes to, oh, if you're not Christian, you do witchcraft. If you're not Christian, you're a devil worshiper. If you're not Christian, you're demonic. And it's like, why is that such an extreme left that you have to say just because that person doesn't connect with Christianity? Like, wouldn't you want that person to discover their own practice, their own spirituality, instead of sitting in church faking Christianity because they feel like they have to do that to fit in because it's the norm? Oh, everybody likes people who love Jesus, so let me sit here and suffer and try to act like I really like this religion, and even though I feel suffocated. You should want someone to discover what makes them happy. And that's why I appreciate that I grew up with parents that didn't shove religion down my throat. Like, once I told my mom and dad, like, hey, I don't think Christianity is working for me, they were like, okay. For example, my dad, rest in peace, he was a person that believed if you have to depend on the Bible to be a good person, you're not a good person. He is like, if you're just a good person in general, I don't care what you practice. And my mom is the same way. I don't care what you believe in. Are you a good person? Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to steal from me? Are you going to abuse? No? Okay, then fine. I don't care who you pray to. Obviously, it's working for you. But I will say, and maybe this is because I'm in a state where you run into more spiritual people in general. When I'm meeting someone and the religion question comes up and I say, yeah, I'm not a Christian, I never received that much backlash in person. Like the people who be online saying, if you're not Christian, you need to give your life to God, Lord, and Jesus is your savior, all that umph. I never got that in person. There was only one instance where someone tried to correct me on my practice by telling me to take my unk off. I had to clear her real quick. But and even someone in my life before, like, oh, how's dating being spiritual? And I made the joke, I'm like, if someone likes you, they don't care what you practice, especially in heterosexual interactions. I said, if a man likes you, he don't care what you practice. He don't care what you did in life. He don't care if you went to jail for a murder. He's going to be like, wow, you're so pretty. Can I take you to dinner? So I feel like sometimes on social media, it's a little intensified and hyped up, where I'm like, no, trust me, just go outside, unless you live in like a Christian state, and then you may face it in person. But sometimes it's like, it's not that bad in real life. Like, you could be who you are, be yourself. And a lot of times through these conversations where people are interested in what I do, then I'll like share it. They're like, you know what? My grandma used to do something like that. She had this thing where this is that. And then I'm slowly watching them discover, yeah, your grandma did some craft. If I talk about an altar, they're like, wait, in my grandma's house, she had this table she didn't want nobody to touch, and there was always a candle lit. And it was like, yeah, you thought that was a Glad candle? No. Usually these videos are hard to do because it's like one thought reminds me of another, then like it's hard for me to pinpoint what this video is about. So I'm going to close it here. But if you have any questions that you want me to answer about spirituality, I'll be sure to answer them in my next video. But let me know some advice you have for people down below. What experiences or lessons you learned at the start of your spiritual journey, even though it was just the moment you decided to tap into your spiritual side. Let us know down below. If someone else is reading it, what would you want them to know that you wish you knew? Let's share and have a conversation down below. But like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Until next time, you guys, Ashe, baby.